Today on Beat Motel, we are digging into the ruins of 1990s Liverpool to find out why a three-time Oscar winner spent his youth hiding in a camouflage suit. We are also going to ask if God really did write the greatest song of the 80s. Is that true? Stick with us. We're talking about the Echo and the Bunnymen story. It's bloomin' odd, some of it, and it's quite cool. This is a band, for example, at the height of their fame, spent all their money making sure their audience couldn't see them on stage. Let's get into it now. You're listening to the Beat Motel podcast, and we need to warn you that we like to use words like fuck, shit, and syndicalist, butty scruttox, angry flap, and foot biscuits. So, welcome Dr. Sam, thanks for coming on this journey, and we've already established between us, I think at the end of the last episode, that you don't know a great deal about Echo and the Bunnymen. What do you know? What if you got like a baseline? You've even seen people wear their t-shirts?
I know their name, I know they're from Liverpool, a city of great music and sometimes quite extreme or very interesting politics.
Right, okay. How can you swerve this into politics already?
Oh no,
seconds
it's just like,
in.
well, you know, I used to when I was Echo and the Bunnymen. I'll keep it to Echo and the Bunnymen. I think I had a song of theirs when I was a kid on one of those greatest hit compilations. 50s hits, or what they were called, the greatest songs of 1996 or something like that. And but I also sort of know them because as a kid I was a glory hunting little shit, and and I liked football a lot, and I supported Liverpool. Unfortunately, I started supporting Liverpool at the same time they started sucking in the 90s. So I was just but I was going, surely they're going to come back to the glory years that they had throughout the 70s and 80s. Liverpool sort of so I'm going to take over a little bit now. Liverpool's a very interesting place politically and socially because of its the wealth it once had, and then the incredible decline it went on in the 70s.
Part of the reason for that decline is the town of Felixstowe in Suffolk.
Oh yes, yeah.
We have kind of shifted a bit. We will. This is all kind of it is all ballpark Echo and the Bunnymen stuff, really. So because the singer's parents were not wealthy. There's a lot of working class influences, but when container shipping became a huge thing, which happened very slowly. The first guy, I've got a book about shipping containers. Would you believe?
That's for next week.
Yeah, no, we're going to do the history of shipping containers. I actually find it interesting, but all the instead of it taking a week to unload a ship, it could be done in 4 hours, or so very, very quick. So of course the unions in the Liverpool docks, which was huge, looked at that and went, well, this is going to cause massive layoffs. This is going to decimate it. So no, you can fuck off with your shipping containers. Whereas Felixstowe went, bring them on in, which is why Felixstowe is now such a huge port and expanding all the time.
But you would have had to destroy the harbour of Liverpool to make it a space for
the massive ship. That's a good point, because I have been to Liverpool only once.
I think they're now there's a nice. I think there's a very nice museum there now, and some probably very expensive flats.
I've only seen the docks area, which is they must have had spent a fortune. It looks nice, but there's kind of not a lot there. Really, there is some nice museums. We didn't go in the Beatles Museum because it was painfully expensive, and we only had about 20 minutes.
I want to go back now because we went to Manchester. No offence to anybody in Manchester, but it's one fucking museum there. There's two. There's the Workers' Museum, which is very interesting, and then there's a Sports Museum, and I could not give two shits about a sports museum.
No.
And then you go to Liverpool, and they've got the Tate Liverpool, and they've got the docks have some interesting. Probably have two museums. So hopefully there's one about slavery, or at least mentions there, because that's quite a big, significant part of the history of Liverpool as well. But also, Liverpool's been musically has sort of really contributed some really great stuff musically.
Well, the Beatles, which wasn't it, because it was Mersey Beat, and arguably Mersey Beat was a massive influence on punk in Manchester. It was quite they're not that far apart, really, in the bigger scheme of things.
But so Let's go to Echo and the Bunnymen. They're 1978, so they're punk.
Well, that's an interesting thing. We will get into that, but before we get into this, and before we start trapping along the story of Echo and the Bunnymen, we found out you know fuck all about them. That's fair. That's all right.
Yeah.
That's
never,
absolutely
I've
acceptable.
never consciously actually listened to their songs since. I've never put on Echo and the Bunnymen.
So you couldn't name, like, if I said name 3 songs. No, 2.
No. It's also because I was out of the country when they were really big as well. And I was a small kid. So
Look, not having been born is you can't use that as an excuse, because we've done episodes on interwar music. So
yeah. But
you weren't reading the NME, put it that way, when they're in their prime.
I've never read the NME.
Really, so NME and Melody Maker were really fucking important to me.
Yeah.
Like reading a newspaper, just every single word. I can remember taking copies of Melody Maker away, and I didn't know any of the bands, but I still read every single word in that. I suppose it was a newspaper, wasn't it? So did they never reach you living in Portugal, or just not care?
I only got sort of into the music side when I was in the the late 90s, and by that point indie was sort of like, I don't know, they just sort of seemed to the NME and I guess a Melody Maker were part of this. By the late 90s, when I started reading the music press, they were just part of this Britpop world, and they didn't reflect any of the music that I listened to. So I was never drawn to listen to them, and they were to me they were the establishment, which is an interesting position for them to be in a weird way.
It's interesting you say you call them indie, or refer to them as indie. I'm going to make a note that at the end of the episode, I'm going to ask you if you still think they're an indie band. Okay, so before we get into this, as you've not heard Echo and Bunnymen, I'm going to give you a little bit of a taster, and then we'll get straight into it. So people who are watching this on YouTube, you will see videos for some of these and not others, because quite frankly I couldn't get it to fucking work. So there's some. If you're on audio only on podcast land, then well, if
you see videos, stop taking what you're taking.
Just imagine your eyes. Imagine
your eyes.
There you go. Fuck it. When I play this, just imagine your eyes.
Still recoil when the skin is lost. Am I the worthy cause? Will I still be soiled when the dirt is off? Pondering myself until I see another herd approaching. Say we can, say we will, not just another drop in the ocean.
Quite like that bass.
Watch the fingers close when the hands are cold.
So first
Have
impressions.
you listened to any of the Echo of the Bunnymen for this?
They're just sort of part of my consciousness, and I've because I've been doing actual research. Now, long-time listeners of yours might be surprised that's actual research. I was surprised how many of the songs were in my consciousness, and the sounds. So that was the cutter.
I never. And also, that sounded like it started as The Cure and then went completely elsewhere.
That's really interesting, actually. That's a really interesting observation. Do I have a guess at what year this was? Because you said you thought the band started 78.
I mean, that maybe late 80s?
83.
Okay.
So The Cure at that time were not sounding like that, because The Cure didn't sort of really go goth until Pornography, I don't think. We ought to do a Cure episode, because another band massive in my conscience, I know very little about them. But that was a lovely bit of bass guitar. Just the sound of it. That was a proper bouncy Fender Precision bass at the end there. And at the beginning, I've never figured out whether it's bagpipes. Do you hear that?
No, play it again.
Let me play. Well, play on a bit, and I'll go back to the beginning.
sounds like keyboards to me.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Again, it's like
cheap. It's not cheap. I imagine they were very expensive in the 80s, but
I imagine that the
80s.
The learning curve isn't quite as steep with a keyboard as it is with a bagpipes. I think bagpipes must be second only to violin to be one of the instruments you've got to have the most tolerant neighbours when you're in the or difficult early phases.
Wow. Yes, I mean, someone said to me the other day they've been going to parties for the last 10 years, and the in-law kid had been playing violin for the last 10 years at every single party, and it's just like in the last 3 years it's just about got listenable.
That's the only thing that's worse than being at a party, like you and I go to parties, being at a party and someone just like producing an acoustic guitar and say, should we sing some songs? I was like, no, shall we fuck off?
Should we get the fiddle out?
Yeah, so we're probably just shitting on like an entire long working class tradition of entertainment at home, but fuck it, and these days we've got Netflix and pornography. Why do we need the violin?
Yeah, that's what you get at kids' parties.
Fucking hell. Right, so let's get this properly up and running. So there was a band before Jesus and Mary Chain. Now we're going to look at the cast for this band because it's one of those strange things. Do you know that they're a band big in Japan?
I've heard of the name.
Yeah, so they were a band who sort of, when you look at the didn't do much really, but when you look at the members and you're like, fucking hell, what? So the first
Flowers
band,
of Romance.
Yeah, exactly. So that was Sid Vicious, Susie Sue.
Yeah, like everybody else went on. Everybody basically went on to do
stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things I forgot to ask you, I want you to have a think about some themes as we go through this. Certain themes are going to keep coming up. I want to see if you can just jot them down and see if you can tell me what the recurring themes are as we go through. So let's have a look at the cast of this first band. This first band wasn't called Echo and the Bunnymen. They were called the Crucial Three. Okay, now that's it's a fairly strong statement for forming a band.
And also seems to start their thing for terrible names of bands.
So the Crucial Three was Ian McCulloch, who is the singer of Echo and the Bunnymen, and he's got some interesting quirks about him. He has OCD, and one of his OCD things is he counts the syllables of every sentence he ever says. I mean, a lot of this is from a book that was written not that long ago, but written by someone called Mick Houghton, and we're going to talk about him a bit later. So the source is reasonably good. So he counted syllables, and he had to ensure that every sentence hit an even number because it's tidier.
Wow.
I don't know, thinking Ian McCulloch must now be, I guess, in his 70s, or at least. I don't know if that's a habit he kept up, but that's fairly wild. But as we go on and learn more of this story, I think if he does count in syllables, it might add to some of the reasons that people feel about him the way they do, so that he's quite aloof and quite distant. You think if somebody asks you a question, you've got to work out how many syllables in your answer, you're probably going to come across a bit aloof.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Is he very, like, does he go for melody or does he go for very sort of symbolic? It's not symbolic, but symbolic.
Overall themes of the band, or like in his songwriting?
Like, when he does he like, because that who do we know who was singing that stuff that you? Because there were two vocalists there.
Was there?
Sounds like to me.
Let's have a little bit more of it and see if it is. It could just be doing the old studio trick of backing yourself up. I'm not aware of there being more than one vocalist. That doesn't mean there wasn't. Because I say, I want for this episode, I want to pick a band I don't know a ton about because I wanted the enjoyment of actually kind of digging into it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I'm already intrigued. I'm already sort of wanting to listen to more, personally.
I mean, I think the production is remarkable. We take a lot of that kind of production for granted these days because it's so much easier to record. But that sounds quite great. Right, so
the crucial, what are they called? The Crucible, the Crucial Three.
the Crucial Three. Yep, we're not even.
What year were they?
77 to 78. They're basically teenagers with big hair and chips on their shoulders.
And is it like the usual story? They heard the Sex Pistols and,
I don't know. It would strike me that may well be the case if it's 77.
Yeah.
So, couple more facts about Ian McCulloch. He's obsessed with Planet of the Apes, the original version, the 1968 film. Which he will get into arguments over. He claims it's a flawless sociological treatise. What's a treatise? Treatise. What's that mean? Sorry, spot the academic, spot the dumbass here.
It would mean that it's sort of like it's a essay essentially, perfect, flawless essay, social commentary.
He knows the script by heart. Apparently, there are certain films that I can almost do word for word. I probably could do Star Wars when I was younger, but my son's now seen Project Hail Mary 9 times, so I think he's probably getting close to being able to do that for Project Hail Mary. Right. This next fact is going to be the first insight into something that I'm going to make it fairly easy for you. I said try and spot the themes. Okay, I'm going to ring a little bell if I had one to say this is the first fact that you might want to take into consideration. So Ian McCulloch covered My Way by Frank Sinatra, and he unironically believes his is the only version worth listening to because he says every other version is a parody. So he claims his is better than Frank Sinatra. Just don't bother listening to Frank Sinatra. Listen to my cover version. Nothing else matters. Okay? So, the three people in this Scouse Trinity, the Crucial Three, the second one, I'm going to introduce him by playing one of his songs. Go on.
Is this the Jesus in this Trinity, Holy Trinity? Is this the Jesus or the Holy Spirit?
The Holy Goat.
The Holy Goat.
Right. Now, I have genuinely no idea if you're going to know who this is or not. So here is the second member of the Crucial Three. So, do you know who that is?
No, that's beyond my knowledge.
Really couldn't guess it. Did you recognise the song?
No, it sounded to me like lyrics came out of an argument in the rehearsal space.
You might not be a million miles away, actually. So this was a mega smash. I mean, you're talking about compilation albums. I remember my dad, he was a part of, I can't even remember what it was called, but there was a thing where you'd get sent an album or two every month by post, like a subscription kind of thing. And you'd get a compilation album. This would have been on every hits compilation album the year it came out. So this is Julian Cope.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so Julian Cope, and for people who can see the video, he's sort of kind of mounting I don't know what it is. It looks like those steps that you get up beside of telegraph poles. He's sort of mounting it, and that's that. So Julian Cope, he's an interesting guy. So this was a mega smash after years of basically being quite difficult and not really getting anywhere. These days, what do you think he's known for? I mean, he's got a massive legacy outside of music. Do you want to just have a guess at what it is?
Painting? Yeah. A lot of artists, a lot of musicians like to paint.
Yeah, no, he's a megalithic scholar. He's a genuine academic and a world expert on prehistoric stone circles and megaliths. He wrote a book about them, which is really famous, and it's 500 pages long. Apparently, I'm not sure if that means it's a big book or not.
What's the name of his song?
The song. Now, this is confusing. The song's called "World Shut Your Mouth," and I meant to make a note about when it came out because, confusingly, he's also got an album called "World Shut Your Mouth," and he'd do this thing where he'd release an album, and the next single. The lead single for the next album would be called the same thing as the album, the previous album.
Oh.
So if you thought, yeah, this is a smash hit, loads of kids must have gone out to Our Price or Andy's Records or wherever to buy the album, only to find out the single just straight up isn't on it.
Maybe that was like trying to fool the kids into buying the album rather than the single.
I think he was just an awkward sod, really. I mean, he's got quite a reputation. Less so now. He's calmed down a lot now, apparently, but his early reputation was of just being very, very difficult. So part of the mic stand thing there, earlier to this, he started performing only on step ladders, which is like, you listen to these things and it is literally like, what now? And he was absolutely teetotal for a long, long time. And then someone introduced him to acid, and he just went all in. Just literally just went, this is it. This is who I am now. So the stepladder thing, and possibly this weird mic stand we're seeing in this clip, is because he decided the floor was just too dangerous. I mean, just as a whole. Which must mean he led his life like a permanent game of the floor is lava. If you just, I mean, how do you even... You've got counting syllables with Ian McCulloch. Julian Copes doesn't like the floor.
So what's the connection with Julian Cope and Echo and the Bunnymen?
We've not even got to Echo and Bunnymen forming yet. So Julian Cope's band member number 2 in the Crucial 3.
Okay.
Sorry, did I not say that?
No.
Right, okay, I'll try and keep this thread. So member number 1, Ian McCulloch. Member number 2, Julian Cope. Final Julian Cope thing, he once smashed up his sports car. It was a rare car, and he smashed it up with a sledgehammer as a piece of art. So
I think I've heard of that. I think I heard that. I've heard that one.
Oh,
he's
genuinely odd and interesting. So he used to razor his chest as well, like the wrestlers do. So blood spraying everywhere. Oh, there's a lot. Yeah. There's really lots. Right, so I need to introduce you to member number 3 of the Crucial 3, and it's this fella here.
Sometimes I feel like 80s production ruined a lot of great music.
I've always struggled with this song a bit. It's like Olives. When I was younger, I genuinely don't know if I like it or not. I think it's potentially either genius or it's just not for me. Do you know who it is?
No, who's that?
It's Pete Wiley, although the band is called... Well, they had several names: Wah Heat, Shambiko, Sewa. He used to change the band names to confuse the music press, which seems like an odd tactic to me.
There's a lot of self-sabotage from bands.
Oh, we've got plenty of that coming up.
That was a thing the Replacements missed. They should have gone for that sort of thing.
What, self-sabotage?
Well, I mean, changing the band name as well as everything else. They did.
They did. They used to do gigs under completely different names in the early days. But right, that the episode I did by myself on Replacements is by far our most popular episode. It's been watched. The video version has been watched like 27,000 times. It came out about a year and a half ago, and people are still pointing out that I missed out one of the best albums. I just forgot it existed, which is part of the reason I wanted to do this. So, for those who can see the video, like Sam and I. There's something very particular, something slightly odd, I think, about Pete Wiley's performance in this video. So, can you describe the scene for people who are on audio only?
It looks like it's in a pub. It could be a working man's club, and there's a mixture of old drinkers and young'uns. We're currently looking at a picture of a man. I think he's trying to read his beer.
It's just a plain glass, but he does look like he's trying to read it.
And a woman with very sharp bob haircut. I think that's what it's called.
A purdy, I think they're called.
And he's and Pete himself is in the corner. Seems to be in the corner, maybe the entrance of the pub, as a bit of like a. If people start throwing glasses at him, he might run out. And he's dressed in I think my memory serves me correctly. Yeah, bit of a tux, bit Frank Sinatra-ish outfit.
But one of the things that I think is particularly strange, so sorry for people on audio only, I'm going to play a little clip of this again. Look at his physicality and tell me that he doesn't look like he needs a ship. Right? Watch this. So he basically can't. It's like, he's very, very cold, or very nervous, I suppose. But it's an odd video, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the crucial three was Julian Cope, Ian McCulloch, and Pete Wiley of the Wah. Julian Cope was also the frontman of Teardrop Explodes, and kind of for a long time he was most famous for that until World Shut Your Mouth came out. So why do you think they split up after such 2 years? What do you think went wrong with the band?
Astronomical egos.
Right. I need a little bell so I can go ding. Yeah, they didn't even bother telling people it was musical differences. They basically split up because all of them wanted to be the front man. So, well, to be fair, all three of them went on to be frontmen in pretty successful acts. I mean, Pete Wiley's sort of pre my time, but no, he was a fairly massive star. And I don't think his singing voice is that good. I think he reaches a bit hard. Right, so we ought to actually get on to the actual Echo and the Bunnymen. So 1978. So 78 to 79 this period is. So Ian McCulloch meets two people, Will and Les, at a club in Liverpool called Eric's.
How old are they at this point?
Oh, God. Really fucking young. I should know that. That'll be... Right, ask me questions like that, because in future episodes I'll do a bit more research, because I always want to know stuff like that.
Was Eric's in like a nice part of Liverpool or a rough part of Liverpool?
I think at that time, arguably, there probably wasn't any like super nice bits of Liverpool, because, as you said, the decline of the docks, and which was such a dominant employer, I can't imagine there would have been loads of fancy places. But this is, I'll happily be proved wrong. It's not a judgment on it, but I can't imagine the club would have been like Stringfellows or Studio 54 or the Chippendales or something.
And did they know the only other famous Liverpudlian that I am aware of beyond the Beatles, which is Alexis Sale?
Of course, yeah. What about Cilla Black?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Again, this is sort of
There's
fair
age
enough. Did
difference
they know
here.
Cilla Black? Was she hanging around Eric's?
What about the Crankies?
Oh, that's not in my wheelhouse.
That's not in your wheelhouse. The Crankies, right? I like explaining 80s pop culture to you because
This is what this episode's about in a way, isn't it?
it's such an odd thing. So the Crankies, when you watch,
I know who they are.
Oh, you know who they are. Okay, so I was going to have to explain
The
them.
sex always confused me, but, you know.
That's what always comes up whenever they're mentioned anywhere now. The fact that they once said they were swingers always comes up. It's just... They're like certain interviews. You say one thing once and it's just going to like dog you for the rest of your career. Right, so the band couldn't get a drummer. Basically, every drummer they tried, they just didn't get on with, and there's several bits that say they couldn't find a drummer who they wouldn't want to, who didn't make them want to start a fight with them. Now, I don't think this is a fisticuffs kind of band. I think it's kind of... They might as well be honest. McCulloch say we couldn't find a drummer that we would want to have curt words with. Right, so he met Will Sargent. He's the lead guitarist. He was told at school the only thing that he's ever going to be able to do with his life is become a welder, and he rejected that. Wholeheartedly.
There were no jobs at the welder, so he gave a pop star a go.
Yeah, fuck it. I'll go make moody proto-goth. He collects ray guns, vintage ray guns, and he has made a load of albums, ambient albums, using by sampling his ray guns. This is in later years. He's obsessed with The Prisoner, you know, the TV series.
Yeah.
And he goes to Portmeirion, where it's filmed, to sort of clean his chakras, to sort of recharge his aesthetic, his feeling about life. But we're on to Les Patterson, so I'm speeding up a bit. I'm just looking at our inattentive timer. We're halfway through and we've got loads to cover. So just jump in and challenge me. So Les Patterson, the bassist, before he was in this, he was a performance artist. They saw him at college and he was like wanging around neon tubes and shouting poetry, and that was his thing until he joined the band. And he turned up. I'm not sure he'd actually really played bass before. He turned up with a bass that only had 3 strings on it. And the reason...
You only need 2.
Yeah, God, these are end times. I've literally recorded albums and only used the E string. I was tuning up in the studio once and the engineer was like, why are you bothering? why do you tune those strings?
I have... Sometimes when recording with a drummer, I've always wondered why they bothered. Sometimes I've never noticed the drummer actually using his toms. I wonder why they bother miking up the toms.
Oh God, we had that with Dom, bless him, the drummer of End Times. We were in a really nice studio, and setting up the drums take fucking hours, like 3-4 hours. And then we did the first take, and the engineer just pressed the button and went, right, before we go any further, Dom, why the fuck did you watch while I spent 3 hours setting up mics on your toms? Because you don't use them. Valid point. So Will Sargent turned up with his... Lee Patterson turned up with his bass, only had 3 strings, and they challenged him as to why, and he just didn't know you're supposed to have an E string. So he had a teacher, he just knew so little about playing bass. He's like, what, there's supposed to be a string there?
So there is like a punk aspect of just like... It's less about musicianship and more about just wanting to do it and having ideas.
I think just fucking doing it. I mean, the punk aesthetic often gets confused with the sound of punk, and I think that's really not it. If anything, that's the smallest part of it, because you got bands like Orange Juice doing Rip It Up, and that's not punk. That's bouncy. It's got a Roland TB303 on it. You know, the sound of acid house, bleepy thing. That's Edwyn Collins. He's not punk, but certainly I imagine the get up and get fucking started attitude of punk certainly inspired that. He's no longer an active musician. Les Patterson, do you have a guess at what he does now?
He makes monoliths.
Makes monoliths. Wouldn't that be a wonderful job to do, like at parties? What do you do? Well, I make monoliths. I've just been to Wales with a friend of mine who went to a business conference, and I always like introducing him and saying, this is my friend Rick, you've got 5 guesses at what he does for a living, because nobody can ever guess it. He builds model villages for guinea pigs. He's in my phone.
I'm not even going to ask why or how you
really
make money from that.
Pigs. He just really likes guinea pigs. But not eating them. Right.
I've eaten guinea pig.
You've eaten guinea pig?
Yeah. It wasn't worth the fight. The meat wasn't worth the fight between the bones.
Can't imagine. I've never seen like a super chubby guinea pig. They're probably like fluffy cats when it rains. They're probably just a skinny little thing in the middle.
Yeah.
Pick around at it.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot of work for not a lot of reward.
Do you want to, as for context, do you want to say which country you're in?
That was in Ecuador.
Ecuador, right? Okay, you weren't in Southend or Chelmsford.
I was in a beefeater. That's all they had. They found one round the back.
Couldn't find. I didn't have my glasses, and I didn't realise that instead of walking to a beefeater, I was walking into a Pets at Home. And I thought, cool, everything's free range here.
Very impressive. Yes, very good.
Right, so I've sort of accidentally gave something away a bit. I said they couldn't find a drummer, but they did have a 4th member. So at the moment we're on Ian McCulloch singing, Will Sargent lead guitar, Les Patterson bass, and I'm going to play a track to give you a clue as to who 4th member was.
The last time we ever met. But I know the reason why you keep your silence up. No, you fool me. The hurt doesn't show, but the pain still grows. So stranger to you and me.
I can't. You have questions?
Just why?
So, in the background of that, before the boo 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 boo.
Was it drum machine?
Yay! Well done. So the background of that is the Roland CR78. That track, of course, was Phil Collins with "Feeling You Up in the Air Tonight." So the CR78. How much do you know about drum machines?
Not a lot.
It's kind of an odd drum machine because you couldn't program it really, not properly. It wasn't like the 808, which is the really famous, kind of hip hop drum machine. So it predates that. The CR78 was more like, have you ever seen like village hall organs or the big organs where you have a rhythm section, you press it, it goes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit more like that. So you can hear it on the beginning of the Phil Collins track. But their CR78 was their fourth member. And it had a name.
Did they ever get a drummer?
Bear with. They claimed that they got their band name, Echo and the Bunnymen, because they called their drum machine Echo.
Oh, why are they the Bunnymen?
Just for their own amusement, I think. It's just one of those
it's
things.
It's interesting that what's the guy, the main guy who seems to, you suggested has an incredible ego, would condescend to having something else taking the main name.
That is interesting, actually, isn't it? But he's also a contrary bastard, and they've since admitted the record label hated the name Echo and the Bunnymen. They said it sounded
a terrible name. Yeah.
Well, the record label thought it made them sound like a cabaret act, which I can kind of see. So they just said, "Oh no, Echo's the drum machine." I mean, there was a period in the 80s where drum machines in bands was really like a choice. Jesus and Mary Chain used a drum machine.
Was it the Echo, like the drum machine that you used to hit? So someone would still be playing it, and it'd be pads that you hit.
Oh, that's just an electric drum kit. Well, an SPD pads, they're called, Roland SPDs. But this would be more of a press go, and you've just got to play along to whatever it is. But being contrary bastard, Will Sargent, actually the lead guitarist, admitted eventually, no, the drum machine was never called Echo. It's a drum machine. But there's several things. They appear to just like lying to journalists. We'll go into this a bit more later on. They did not like speaking to the press. And I know some bands don't, and some bands probably like speaking to the press too much, but I think there's got to be a certain element of playing the game, unless that was the punk thing. The punk thing was like, fuck you, we haven't got to justify ourselves, we're just going to make music. Okay, so that's the machine, the CR78. So let's find out what happened next. Well, basically, a lot of the book, it's a podcast, isn't it? A lot of the podcast, I can't get rid of we've got people watching, we've got Phil Collins' face looming up on the screen. Let's just leave him there. So a lot of the reason this episode came about is I read a book by Mick Horton, who's a press agent. And he was a press agent for absolutely loads of really interesting band. And he started doing their press when Echo and the Bunnymen signed to WEA. So WEA was basically Warner Brothers, Elektra, and Arista, I think. Yeah. It's like a combination of them all. And yeah, he was like, here's your press guy. But he's famous for hating sound bites. So a lot of press outside of music or anything, what you're trained to do with media training is just like repeat this phrase, and then if it's repeated enough things, that becomes a soundbite, and that becomes what you do. He hates that. He's like, it's just shitty, lazy journalism. Don't. If the journalists want to do it, let's get them involved. Let's make an actual story. So instead of like taking phone calls, in his book he says people ring up, go, oh yeah, we're going to have a feature on Echo and the Bunnymen, I just need a soundbite. Like, you can fuck off. What he'd do instead, he'd say, if you want something from the band, then you're going to meet us at this restaurant at this time, and we're going to get pissed. And we're going to spend a couple of hours chatting, and you take out of that what you feel you need to take out of it. So it's quite an interesting character. And he was, by the time he was working with Echo and the Bunnymen, he was sort of mid-30s, so he was quite a lot older than them. He was also managed press for the KLF for quite a while, including the era when they tried to buy a decommissioned Russian sub and set it up as a recording studio, which I think Aphex Twin did as well. So it was his job to break Echo and the Bunnymen in the States. He had to. There's always that thing with British bands. Once you've had a bit of success in the UK, you have to break America. And loads of massive bands famously failed, like Suede failed. Blur, it took until Song 2 to get any sort of, any sort of grip on the American market. So the attitude, the method he got is he'd hire out a hotel room, or hotel, not a room so much, but like a conference room, and he'd get the journalists in, and he'd basically say, we're going to start drinking now, and we'll give the interview, we'll give whatever they want to the last person who's left in the room. So it was basically like a drinking competition, but it also meant the band didn't have to actually answer any questions. They could just sit there looking moody. According to him, the label, the record contract they had almost bottomless funding, petty cash. What's the word I'm struggling for? Budget. So they'd just do whatever they wanted, and the label would go, yeah, fine. So before we move on with the story, I have to play this. Come on, play.
My straw reaches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Don't bully me.
Taken out of context, that's such an odd thing to give you there. Do you know who it is?
I recognise. No.
Right, that's Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, I can't stand him.
I don't really know much about him, but he was.
Oh no, I don't. It's not him. I just don't like the hype around him. I don't get him. But, yeah. Anyway.
Now, there's some claims here which I have backed up, but even I'm not entirely sure. Now, he definitely was a roadie for Echo and the Bunnymen. That's an absolute fact. But allegedly, he worked as a roadie in character. He wanted to fit with the aesthetic of the band, and the aesthetic of the band at the time was to cover the stage in camouflage netting. So when he was on tour in 1981, he wore... It wasn't like he carried the gear so much as he tried to become the gear, which is either like horribly wanky...
Plug your bass into me. Plug your bass into me.
Plug your...
Bo.
Oh my god, I had my first ever singing lesson on Saturday, and that's one of the recommendations I've had, is to play bass line, sing bass lines while I'm playing them, but like, you took it to a whole nother level. Yeah, so no, he was a roadie, he genuinely was, and he made really close friendships with some of the other roadies, to the extent that he then took them, he stayed in contact with them and sort of used them as assistants as such when he was filming. So when he filmed My Left Foot, which is the film where he's cerebral palsy, he did the whole thing as a method, staying in character, and the only people allowed to spoon feed him were other ex-roadies of Echo and the Bunnymen. I say that with a huge caveat. I'm sort of have been able to verify that, but it doesn't sound real. It does not sound like a real fact. He quit. Daniel Day-Lewis quit acting for 5 years and trained as a cobbler in Florence. Another fact I'm sort of verified, but
No, this is the thing that sort of puts you off him. Really, it's just like there was it's just like, man, it's just fucking acting. Take
there's-
yourself so fucking seriously. You're not an artist who's in Hollywood movies, shit like that.
I think it was Laurence Olivier. There was some really famous actor who worked with Laurence Olivier, an American actor, and he said it's incredibly difficult. You know, it's a really demanding film. You know, I can't believe I have to spend all my time getting prepared, and I live in character, and I'm the proper method actor. And Laurence Olivier was like, "Dear boy, why don't you just try pretending?" Oh dear! I saw a clip with Ian. I was going to say Ian McMillan. No, he's a poet. The guy who played Gandalf, and what's his name? Whoever it is, and he said,
Picard.
"Fuck it, this is going nowhere," and we need to move on. They got rid of the drum machine. They got rid of Echo, or they kept Echo in the name. And their drummer was a guy called Pete de Freitas, who was actually sort of aristocracy, kind of. He came from a very, very different background. He was at a boarding school that was also a monastery, and he kind of ran away from it, and that's when he became the drummer of Echo and the Bunnymen. He was an interesting guy, unfortunately past tense. He was obsessed with motorbikes. And if you're listening to this and you know Echo and the Bunnymen, you'll know why I say that with such gravity. But he did some interesting stuff. So apparently he would use his motorbikes, he'd tinker on the motorbikes to find the perfect BPM for songs that they were writing. Because I guess they kind of throb a bit, motorbikes, do they? I don't know, it's a bit strange. He did end up kind of losing his way in a fairly significant way, and fled to America at the height of Echo and the Bunnymen's fame, and started a band called the Sex Gods, who did nothing. Right, let's move on. So I mentioned the visual chaos, you know, that tour in 1981. So on stage, in the early days at least, Echo and the Bunnymen were very theatrical. So they had huge amounts of camouflage netting, which you wouldn't be able to do now because of health and safety. It's really flammable. And they had money. The record label gave them plenty of money, and they spent it all building a massively powerful lighting rig. But whereas most bands put their lighting rig in the rafters or out the front, theirs was all behind them. So if you went to go and see Echo and the Bunnymen, not only could you not see the band, you just see silhouettes. You'd also be like uncomfortably blinded, and they did that for quite a long time. But so you'd see their silhouettes, but their heads would have looked. This is a thing, a part of the style at the time, and you see this with Jesus and Mary Chain as well. It's having really big hair, and they didn't have the gel products or the styling mousse and whatever now. So there was various methods for doing that. Guitarists in the band I was in used to use soap, which was fine until you went out with him and it was pissing it down with rain. It just kept really frothy. But Echo and the Bunnymen they use sugar. They use sugar to make their hair like massive, you know, like Psychobilly's. It was like Psychobilly's massive hair, but like it was always untidy, just like really, just big. And it caused a problem on stage because this is when stage lighting was hot. I mean, now when you're on
So
stage,
they caramelise their hair.
that is one of the issues. They would caramelise their hair. That's such a better description. The way I just wrote that it melted, but no, caramelised their hair is a much better way of describing it. But it had a real smell to it as well, because stage lights then,
burning hair and burning sugar.
Stage lights then were hot. I mean, I'm so old that I remember hot stage lights. Used to dread there being too many lights anyway. Now it's all LEDs and it doesn't matter at all. But then it would have been hot in front of stage light. I used to go and see bands and they'd be pissing with sweat, even if they weren't moving, just because of the lights. But the problem with having melted hair is it used to attract a lot of flies as well. So the end of the set, apparently one quote says the end of the set smelt like a burnt bakery and was covered in flies. Right, so let's go on to 1983 to 87. They were starting to really get a grip, and this is in the days where major labels would give you the chance, you know, actually give you a few albums to get your feet to get yourself up and running, kind of thing. So they start to spend more of this money that they must have been actually earning by then. Go on.
Can I take you back a bit more linear? They started in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
When did they get signed?
I probably should have written that down. 1980 they signed.
And what's their first album? And was it a hit? Their first album.
I meant to write down their discography before we started and forgot. They did all right. You know, they did well enough that they stayed on the label, but it took a few years for them to become actual massive stars.
They took the Thin Lizzy route. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things they start spending a lot of money on was cover art, which I really like. Bands don't really do it so much now. You think you had Psychosis? Who did all the Pink Floyd and Camel and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, money used to get spent. I mean, a lot of money. And the album covers, I still think they hold up. There's two that are particularly good. But Ocean Rain is the one we're going to talk about. And this was a bit of a smash hit, both sides of the Atlantic. And on the cover, they're in a cavern, sat in a boat. But when they turned up to do the photo shoot, no one thought to bring a boat. So they just sort of found one nearby, apocryphal possibly, that was more like a sieve than a boat. So on the cover, it looks cool. They're it's in Ireland, I think. They're in a cave, but apparently it was freezing cold. And Ian McCulloch has talked about it a few times afterwards, said it wasn't cool, it was cold and stupid. But the album looks smart. It looks really good. Have you got questions, or shall I move on?
Move on.
I'm going to move on with this.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirt you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is...
Let's pause it
We're
there.
spending a lot less time with Echo and the Bunnymen than I thought we would be.
Oh, do you think? No, I thought it would be more interesting to make it a more of a wander, because anyone who's listening to this because they really like Echo and the Bunnymen, they're not going to tune in to hear it mangled through this. Anyone who hasn't heard the band, like you, I wanted to drop in enough bits to sort of act as an amuse-bouche, or like a little sort of tease in case you want to kind of look for more. But you're never going to guess this. But I mean, who was that? I mean, really, anyone listen? Look, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't know who that was, then why are you here?
Well, I mean, that was obviously the Soft Machine.
That was David Bowie, and that's Space Oddity. Bowie facts. I can't believe I'm doing Bowie facts. He believed. When he lived in, I think it was LA or somewhere in America, he believed a demon lived in his pool. He was doing very much into the occult back then, and he saw the demon one night, which is in that Please Kill Me book written by Legs O'Neill, and decided that the occult wasn't worth mucking about with. In the 70s, for a brief period, he only survived on red peppers, milk, and cocaine. And when he was offered a knighthood much later in life, he turned it down. Do you know his reason for turning down a knighthood? Guilt? Why would it be guilt? Pardon? Sorry to put my ear to the microphone then. It doesn't work that way, does it? I've got headphones on.
I don't know. Why did he turn down?
In the official statement, he said he turned it down because he didn't know what it's for. Now, I don't know what that phrase means, and it might be typically Bowie and obtuse, but meaning he doesn't mechanically know what purpose it would serve as a tool, or he doesn't understand why he'd be given a knighthood. Which do you think it would be?
Or he doesn't value what it does.
What it does, yeah, I think that's probably it. Although you could have gone and smoked a doobie in the bogs like the Beatles allegedly did. So, do you want to have a guess at why I just played a bit of Bowie? Oh, it's Space Oddity. That's quite crucial to the story.
He influenced Echo and the Bunnymen.
It's a bit more than that. Although, yeah, of course he did. I mean, that's there, but
He slept with several members of Echo and the Bunnymen.
at once, they famously in the Cavern Club in Liverpool had a soggy biscuit circle jerk.
David Bowie and Echo and the Bunnymen.
The thing is, like, well, earlier I was going to say that
Sure, it would be in Eric's.
somebody I worked with years ago said that they went to go and see, I think, Zig Zig Sputnik or somewhere, and one of his mates, they hung out with the band, and one of his mates said, "Oh, how'd you get your hair to stick up like that?" And he just went, "It's jism, it's jizz, just jizz in your hand and use that." So his friends started going out. They were taking the piss, but his friends started going out with jizz holding his hair up. Which was later parodied in Cameron Diaz in There's Something About Mary.
Cameron Diaz.
Diaz, what's her name?
Diaz.
Diaz, is that
I
okay?
always thought it was Diaz.
So the reason I've chosen this is there's a song called "The Killing Moon," which I might play a bit of later if we've got time, and massive hit. Yeah, they're just getting stratospheric by now. And when Ian McCulloch was asked what the process behind writing the song was, now bearing in mind what you're starting to know about, what do you reckon he told journalists when they asked him where the song came from, what the inspiration was?
The moon?
He says it was a gift from God. And I'm going to quote here, "I'm not religious, but I know that God wrote that song." That's just, wow. I mean, if you're going to commit to the bit or the ego, then fuck it. He did later on admit that it is just the intro to Space Oddity, but with the chords reversed. So it wasn't so much a gift from God as just directly lifted from Space Oddity by David
what's
Bowie.
the phrase? You know, there's something about genius stealing. I can't. My brain's not working fast enough to remember the quote. So let's move on.
Have crammed a lot in. Artists create, geniuses plagiarise, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Right, so on to this, and then we've got something. Oh, come on, play the track.
Strange, no one remembers your name. When you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange. People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down.
So it sounded, is that Echo and the Bunnymen?
That's Echo and the Bunnymen covering The Doors. People are strange, but they were
in a sort of madness-ish fashion.
I don't
Was
think
that
it's
just production.
I really don't think the production is terribly different to the Doors one. I really don't think it's that different.
To me, it sounds like it's been played by Madness.
Do you know who the producer
Apart from
was?
the vocalist.
The producer
Same
for
as
this?
Madness.
Who?
The same as the Madness guy. I don't know.
No, the producer. They hired Ray Manzarek from The Doors to produce it, which might explain why it sounds quite similar to the Doors original. This is one of their more profitable paydays. They were actually commissioned by Joel Schumacher, the director. Oh, do you know what this film is? Because this is another 80s thing that looms large if you grew up then, but you might not
It's like
get it.
something about teenage vampires. From
Yeah,
Mars.
that's it. Lost Boys. Lost Boys. But this just was another mega smash, and it almost seems out of character to me that Ian McCulloch would commit to doing a cover, because he's so obsessed with the fact that he's a fantastic songwriter, and you know he can't really argue with the fact he can bash out a tune. But wonder how he felt about one of their biggest hits being a cover.
I always think that must I always think that must sort of like grate a little bit. But if you're really keen on your own songwriting prowess, if your most popular or your best thing is someone else's tune, it doesn't take away from the fact that you've done a very good rendition or very popular rendition of someone else's thing, because songwriting is like in pop music as a zone is not that, is from like the 1960s onwards really, but yeah, Musgrave.
Do you
I'd
think?
imagine it's great.
How do you think? So there's like accusations of plagiarism, and then there's legal action, which is possibly unfair, but it could have been avoided. So you've got the people who own the publishing rights to the Stranglers suing Elastica, because I mean that first Elastica album is just a direct lift of Stranglers, Wire. It's like a greatest hits of post-punk.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Is like they're taking influence from somewhere. They're not. If they're not, like you have 12 root notes essentially. People are going to repeat themselves. How many? It's like someone suing. It's like the Ramones suing another punk band for using, the first, fourth, and fifth chord of a scale as the basis of their fucking song. When do you start to say something's plagiarism and something's not?
With Elastica,
I'm going to send you something I found very funny yesterday after this.
Okay, so with Elastica at the time, I remember it being in the press at the time, and the Stranglers, I can't remember which, JJ Barnell, I think, he said, look, that was fucking nothing to do with us. We couldn't give a shit. We great. You sound, a song you've written sounds a bit like a song we wrote. Let's all be mates. Who gives a shit? But obviously it's the legal ramifications. And then you've got Bittersweet Symphony by Verve, which the backbone of that song is a string part from an album of orchestral versions of Rolling Stones songs, and they lost all royalties for I think 20 years because they've just got it back. And I think that probably could have been avoided, could it not?
No, that could have been avoided if they just had gave a wink to the camera. They could say it was for comic use.
It's like the thing you can say in Minecraft. Apparently this is something criminals do when they're talking in places that might be recorded. They just say, I did such and such in Minecraft.
Is this from Reddit or is
That's
this
definitely
AI?
from Reddit. That's definitely from Reddit. Right, I'm going to introduce somebody now who has been around for the whole part of the story, but he sort of becomes a bit more than a bit bigger a part in the story. And I'm going to call this part Act 5, The Cosmic Manhole and the Rabbit Map. So this is 1984 to 88, and I'm going to introduce it by playing, admittedly, a shitty quality video, but it's the best I could find.
This is television freedom.
Have you seen that before? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, that's extreme noise there. Oh, it said it on the screen. Extreme noise there.
Shit, that gives it away somewhat, doesn't
But
it?
I saw that on the KLF documentary.
I haven't seen that. I really want to see the KLF documentary. You probably know more
It's
about
very
it than I do.
80s anarcho in a way.
It's kind of cool. They'd read this book. So I will Mick Houghton's book. I will talk about it more in a minute. He talks extensively about this period, and it's just fun. It's a lot of fun, and I remember all these events very, very clearly. So they came out at the start and fired machine guns full of blanks into the audience. And this is when the audience. So it's the Brit Awards. We should say that it's KLF doing they were booked to do a version of 3 AM, which was a mega smash for them. And Bill Drummond and the other guy whose name I can never remember did it with Ipswich grindcore band ENT. I don't know. I'd love to know. I kind of know Dean and various other people who've been in ENT, and I don't know how it came about. But Bill Drummond, he'd always been kind of around the band. In fact, he formed something called Zoo Records, which was the label that actually signed Echo and the Bunnymen. It was one of those deals where they were signed to Zoo, but in reality they were on WEA. Let's whip through some fun Bill Drummond facts. He was managing Echo and the Bunnymen, more or less. He was more like a Svengali or myth generator or something. Bill Drummond once baked 400 cakes and took them to a random village and knocked on people's door and gave them cakes and asked why he did it. He said he just wanted to spread a little joy.
That's nice.
It is nice, isn't it? I mentioned the submarine earlier. He also tried to buy a Russian submarine so that he could he could explore the North Sea to find all the psychic nodes. What that is, I don't know. He was sometimes a bit grumpy with the press, and it's quite funny reading the Mick Houghton book because he was their press agent, Caleb's press agent. They put out a full-page ad in the NME once announcing that the band was dead because they felt like they were being ignored by the music press. I love that. It's so sort of stroppy but sort of funny as well. He flew Echo and the Bunnymen. He flew the whole band to Iceland for a photo shoot, which is the one before them stood in a cave, and it's a brilliant cover. They're just stood by a frozen waterfall. But the reason he did it is he was sure that there was a cosmic ley line ran from the waterfall to a specific manhole cover in Matthew Street in Liverpool. Can you imagine, like, bands these days, even if they sell loads of, they get loads of millions of streams, they don't have any money. Bands back then, we could go to Iceland to film a thing. Record labels thought, why Iceland? That sounds expensive. Oh, there's a ley line between where we want to shoot it and the manhole cover in Matthew Street in Liverpool. The record label's like, yeah, fuck it, go for it.
We support our manager's use of drugs. That's why.
That's why. So this ley line thing, I've never figured out if Bill Drummond is doing it in a piss-taking way or not. So the promotion for a new album they released called A Crystal Day in 1984, they created a map that fans had to follow around Liverpool. And they said it was something to do with ley lines. In reality, if you followed it, these days you'd do it on Strava, you'd be able to see the shape. It just amused Bill Drummond that the walk around Liverpool, if you mapped it out on a map, it was just bunny ears. You just drew some bunny ears.
I think he was the pioneer of that Strava penis mapping.
The Strava penis mapping. Yeah, so that's Bill Drummond. And what else have I got to tell you about him? He's famous for, he claims to have murdered Echo, so the drum machine. So it's him who actually told the band that you can't use a drum machine, you've got to get a real drummer. Right, so we need to move on to very briefly mention Ian McCulloch got the hump and left in 1989. But the band did carry on for about another 5 years with...
What did he do again?
He got the hump and left.
No, what was he playing?
Ian McCulloch's a singer-songwriter, the main dude.
He left his own band?
He left his own band, yeah.
And they struggled on without him?
They carried on, I think, probably quite cheerfully without him because...
it's like, finally that...
that person's gone. We haven't got to worry about him
relax. Hey, why don't we play a chord?
Ian McCulloch refers to this period because they did release albums. He refers to this flavour of the band as Coke Zero. Which
maybe this is the stuff I heard. This is like what 90s.
Yeah, I think it's
yeah. This would have been the Echo and the Bunnymen that I would have heard on a compilation.
They've got some good stuff to tell you about this band. So the guy that took over from Ian McCulloch was a guy called Noel Burke, and he was in a band called the Vetus Dance, and his band was so unpopular and so obscure that Ian McCulloch, when he was asked about it, he said that band's so unpopular it must be a tax dodge. The record label just as a tax write-off. He was a substitute teacher, and then he sung in Echo and the Bunnymen for a few years, and then he left and went back to being a teacher.
What's he doing nowadays?
He's still a teacher as far as I know. But during this period, Echo and the Bunnymen fans would go to gigs with handwritten signs and hold them up that just said, "Where is Ian?" Mm-hmm. Which That's got to sting a bit, hasn't it? It's got to be a bit unfair, really.
But also, how much spare money did people have to go to these gigs?
Well, this is when gigs were cheap. When I was a kid, we used to go see Blur and like big band tickets would be like £9, not like fucking hundreds. I was at this event, this business thing, and they have like a charity auction, which is just, it stinks. It just makes me really uncomfortable. And they give you this brochure and they tell you the reserve on some things. And one of the things was going to see Harry Styles at Wembley. And just a ticket, nothing, no VIP. It was just the ticket, and the reserve was £1,800.
Well, surely that's most of that's going to charity.
Yeah, but you think that means that the way it works, somebody has bought a ticket and they're given the ticket. You know, my business gives the ticket to the organisation to auction off. So they must. Oh yeah, I guess I was assuming that meant the cheapest ticket was £1,800. That's probably a bit of a stretch, or a bit of a going to A to B via Z kind of thing, isn't it? Right, let's go through the rest of the band names. So Jake Brockman, go on.
Yeah, go on. Keep going.
Jake Brockman, he was in the band for a long time playing keys until he was made an official member of the band. Unfortunately, I mentioned earlier Pete DeFreitas, the drummer, he died in a motorbike accident on the Isle of Man in 2009. Jake Brockman, though, so I sort of flipped between two different people. Damien Reese was the drummer after DeFreitas died. After DeFreitas left. He's married to the singer of Cocteau Twins and is the drummer in Spiritualized. Right, let's move on. I've just realised I'm going to play you another song because after I told you that they ripped off... Let's
go back to Harry Styles for a second. Tickets for the tour have been priced by the event organiser ranging from £44, which you think, oh, that's very reasonable these days for like a Wembley sort of thing, to £466.25, which you think, get to fuck.
Get to fuck. Exactly. Right, so before we move on, I meant to play Killing Moon after telling you that they ripped off Space Oddity and I forgot. So I'm going to play it now while I just check where I am in my notes. Managed to find a bit of not a lot of singing in. Nice one. I think I'm starting to like them more the more I hear them, actually. I always sort of saw them as like a croonery goth band, but instrumentally they're pretty interesting. It's got that lovely bass sound on there again.
It was very 80s, though. You have to...
Oh, no, it is. Well, it is very 80s, but I see 80s as sort of either the Trevor Horn production of stuff, like the super clean production, or the crunchy bass, tons of reverb, slightly gothy production, and they're definitely in the second camp there. Right, before we move on to Legacy, you got any questions?
Is that one of their albums?
No, it's not. Right, so influence, their influence on pop culture. We're not so much running out of time. It's way past how long this episode should be. First one, Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman based, I don't know who this is, but he based Morpheus from The Dream King on Ian McCulloch in 1984. So if you know that comic, Neil Gaiman, huge fan of Echo and the Bunnymen.
Oh, yeah.
You can sort of see it. You can sort of see, yeah, it kind of makes sense in a strange way. The reason he chose Ian McCulloch is that he decided he wanted a character that was... I'm being brought post. Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you. Ooh, I have no idea what that is. Maybe I'll open it later.
A block of cheese.
I don't know. I'll put that over there for now. Right. The character in Neil Gaiman's comic is described as being drawn in shadow, which sounds like a very Neil Gaiman thing to say. And I'm going to play a clip before I explain the next influence. And it's this one.
I have a bass playing on that album. Melissa Alfterfer, I think it is. Awesome.
I was going to say, where do you stand on Hole? I mean, the time period was so strange. It was so odd that the album was called Live Through This, and it came out before Kurt's suicide. But I
think this is Celebrity Skin.
Yeah, no, but the album was called Live Through This, I think.
Yeah.
But you can't deny that song, that album, is full of bangers. It's full of really, really good songs. And think what you might about Courtney Love. I think that's a cracking album. So Courtney Love is kind of interesting for lots and lots of reasons. She's clearly someone who lived her own life. And she was absolutely obsessed with Echo and the Bunnymen.
Oh.
When right, how obsessed, right? And again, facts need verifying, and I've done my best. When she was 16, she basically moved to Liverpool by herself because she wanted to be near the band. She just wanted to be, in the same city as them. And she lived above a chip shop. And she wandered around Liverpool looking for the band members in a stolen overcoat because she wanted to look more like Ian McCulloch. That's the interesting thing. She wanted to look more like him rather than, I guess, with Kurt Cobain had wanted to, fuck him, And when she lived in Liverpool, she was well known for telling people that Marlon Brando was her grandfather. So there you go. There's a. I don't know if I can really see the influence of Echo and the Bunnymen on Whole or on the music at all. But I was just looking for well-known people who were influenced. So. And I got two. Well done, Andrew. Right, so there was somebody at the time, especially when Echo and the Bunnymen were starting to gain success, there was another band who were sort of on the rise, level pegging with them. And this band didn't believe that they were rivals with Echo and the Bunnymen, but Ian McCulloch absolutely fucking despised this band and just... Right, I'm going to play the track, and this is one that I couldn't get a video for. Who's this? Shame the video didn't work because it was quite cool.
Don't shake, just balance on the fence. Don't answer, don't ask, don't try and make sense. Don't whisper, don't talk, don't run if you can walk. Don't cheat, compete, don't miss the one beat. Don't travel by train, don't peek, don't spill, don't piss on the drain, don't let the will.
To be fair,
it come out yesterday.
This clip, I've got to say, the song is not from the era that Ian McCulloch considered this band his biggest rival. But do you know who the band was? I chose a deliberately difficult song to diagnose that, actually.
Fucking no idea.
U2.
Ah.
So that's I chose the only U2 single where the Edge is the lead vocalist on it, just to be an awkward bastard. But yeah, Ian McCulloch saw U2, and who were starting, they're just as big, or sort of, I think U2 were just edging forward. He saw them as the absolute antithesis of what they were, as everything. He saw U2 as everything that they weren't. Everything U2 he thought U2 stood for, he would deliberately go the total opposite direction. He said that Bono was nothing more than a muffin. And I'm not sure I fully understand that, but every time he talks about Bono, he calls him the Muffin. I don't know why. So, do you want some Bono facts?
No.
No. He once paid £1,500 to fly a hat to America first class because he forgot to take it with him on tour. I'm not going to bother with the rest of the facts. Although, interestingly, he has since said that Ian McCulloch was far cooler than he was. And Echo and the Bunnymen, their cool factor was just through the roof.
Yeah, but it's
compared
easy
to
to
you
say
two.
that when you're a multi-millionaire, you know, and
Part
the Pope
owner
was
of
kissing
Facebook.
a ring and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Before I'm going to give you a little quiz in a minute, and before that, I'm going to play you a little bit of their song. That was. This is the Echo and Bunnymen's biggest hit in America. Massive smash, especially on the radio.
She knows what you know. I know what she's thinking. Sugar kissing. Sugar kissing. Just when you think she's yours.
So that's Lips Like
Lovely
Sugar.
bass.
And I find it really interesting. Some bands, like the hits that they get in America compared to the rest of the world, are often very, very different songs. And that sounds, for Echo and the Bunnymen, for the little bits we've heard, sounds quite laid back and, dare I say, a little less interesting, but possibly a little closer to some kind of Americana or something that perhaps American audiences could kind of grab hold of. A bit Roy Orbison, maybe? What do you think?
Bit REM.
Bit REM. Yeah, it would have been. By the time this came out, REM didn't sound like that so much, but certainly early REM, it really sounds like. Oh, it sounds like fucking old college rock, like Soul Asylum and Replacements and REM and whatever, doesn't it? Right, you have 6 questions.
Jangly guitar.
Jangly guitar. You have 6 questions, so I can tell how closely you've been paying attention. So, if I say to you the sentence, Sam is quite bored, would Ian McCulloch say that and be happy with it?
Yes.
Yay, well done, because the even number of syllables, so Sam is quite bored, yes, he would like that. Apparently he did this to keep the cosmic rhythm of the universe in check. Question number 2.
He's fucking lost count recently, hasn't he?
I imagine he must have done by now. Oh, no, I think... I'm assuming he counts the syllables... he counts the syllables in each sentence, not every syllable since he was born. Right then, question number 2. The Machine. Everyone says the band was named after the drum machine. Is it true?
No.
It's not true. They just made that up just to have something to say to the press. Number 3. Ian McCulloch says God wrote The Killing Moon. Is it true?
Yes, Bowie is God.
Well, okay, no. I'm going to give you... In fact, I'm going to give you an extra point for that, because it's not only the right answer, you add a little something. Number 4. Why did the band attract...
This is the most sober I've ever done a quiz. Normally I'm drinking like a nice pint to go with it. It'd be nice.
So, why did the band attract swarms of flies in their early sets?
Because they used... I wonder if they used just plain... I wonder if they got their sugar from the what's the big English brand of sugar?
Tate and Lyle.
Which had a factory in Liverpool. I wonder if they got it locally.
Oh! Or just got it bulk. They could kind of just buy in bulk.
Where did Echo and the Bunnymen source their sugar for their hair? That's a question for you.
Oh man, there was that I cannot think of. I don't even like using a shampoo, but the idea of having stuff caked in your hair, I don't like that. Right, question number 5. Bill Drummond from the KLF, who was managing Echo and the Bunnymen, claimed an energy line, a ley line, ran from Iceland to which bit of street furniture in Liverpool?
No, I didn't write that one down. I don't know that one. Anfield Stadium.
Oh, I'm going to tell you the location. It's at the corner. It's at a junction between Matthew. This is not going to help. It's at the corner between Matthew Street and Rainford Gardens in Liverpool.
I did a little bit of research of what Liverpool, and apparently the original settlement of Liverpool was in the shape of an H.
So that the helicopters knew where to land.
Yeah, exactly. Back in like 1200.
Are you literally? You're not going to have even a guess? So the ley line went from Iceland to
I can't remember the street name.
a manhole cover.
Manhole.
It went to a manhole cover. Yep. What did Ian McCulloch call the version of his band? His band, that he wasn't in. How did he refer to it?
Oh, Coke Zero.
Yes. So you got
Diet Coke back then.
It would have been Diet Coke, wouldn't it? I mean, just do well, unless it's one of those things like when the Kinks.
But my mum likes Diet Coke, so maybe it's okay.
It's one of those. I wonder if it's one of those things like so when the Kinks wrote Lola, they were worried about saying Coca-Cola, so they said Cherry Cola, predating the existence of Cherry Cola by about 15 or 20 years. So maybe it's one of those kind of things. So maybe Ian McCulloch. If you said to Ian McCulloch, did you invite?
Did you invoke?
Did you invoke Coke Zero? I think he'd probably say yes, wouldn't he?
Particularly if you use that type of terminology, yeah.
So you got one question wrong, but due to the fact I gave you an extra point for one of your answers, you did still get 6 after 6, and I think you should be very proud of yourself.
Oh no, or 5+1.
5+1. Right, so at the beginning of the episode, you kept referring to them as an indie band. Do you still think they're an indie band?
No, because they signed to a major label.
There you go, pating, yes. Right, so we've talked about the Oscar-winning actors doing method acting. We've talked about syllable counting. We've just talked about so much here. So what do you think about the band now? Do you think you're going to go and listen to them?
I was just wondering that. Do you think you're going to go and listen to them?
Yes, I think I am. I've really enjoyed reading about them, enjoyed researching them, enjoyed every track I've heard, and I'm going to include 5 recommendations in the show notes, which I'll send to you on Signal afterwards. Yeah. So Killing Moon, that's the God song, the one that God wrote. The Cutter, the scene is like the peak, when they're at the peak of their power in the 80s. I'm going to include People Are Strange on the recommendations just because it was such a big thing. And then I'm also going to include Over the Wall, which is from their very sort of dark period, and they're still going. So Brussels is Haunted is new. They're still an active band. So evidence for this came from a Guardian article called How We Made Killing Moon. It came from Will Sargent, Bunnymen and Echoes, which is a book he wrote. So he was the guitarist. Mick Houghton's book Fried and Justified. I didn't really talk enough about Mick Houghton because I didn't realise how long this would go on for. And there's, if you go look on Wikipedia for the Lost Boys film, it talks about Joel Schumacher commissioning Echo and the Bunnymen and getting Ray Manzarek involved. And there's an obituary of Jake Brockman, who was also in sort of the 5th Bunnyman. He was the keyboard player. There's an obituary of him on the Guardian website, and Neil Gaiman on an article on the CBR website. Did you hear that dog? Talks about why he based Morpheus on Ian McCulloch. So there you go. That's the end of the episode. What's the biggest thing? What anything that really surprised you there?
Neil Gaiman based Morpheus from The Matrix on Ian McCulloch. on Ian McKellen.
If that's what you want to take from it. But there we go. This has been an episode.
That's the internet rumour. I'm going to go on Reddit now and post that.
Like, half the facts that came up in this, I was like, is that an internet rumour or is it actually a thing? Because some of them are just so bizarre. Have you been entertained? Are you not entertained?
Yes.
Yes, good. So that was Echo and the Bunnymen. Listeners,
thank you for that, Andrew.
Viewers, please tell us what you think of this new format, which has been lightly stolen from a couple of podcasts we like. And tell us who you'd like us to feature. So, who are you What's the topic? What's the theme for the next episode, Dr. Sam?
We're sort of going off like represent my thing of representations of sound. We're going to think about what did music in ancient Egypt.
Oh, I cannot wait for that. That sounds absolutely great.
4,000 years ago, if you're counting in linear fashion.
What other way is there of counting other than like linear? I count in non-linear. Do you know how long I've been awake today? Well, I counted it, and it's 2, 9, 7, 8. Right then, thanks for listening. Please subscribe. Please, numbers are going up all the time, and that's cool. One day, maybe Dr. Sam and I actually get paid for doing this shit. So, just time for the outro music, and I think I've clicked the right one. It's this one.
It's like a treat for anybody who gets